is an inferno. The monuments of our civilization are incinerated. What took thousands of years to create, wiped out in just hours. No human on the surface can survive.
If it's the size of the KT dinosaur killer, you got to be underground. There's no building a brick house. You're not going to be like the Three Little Pigs and hope even the brick one's going to keep that big bad wolf out. You've got to be underground. It's got to be subterranean.
The ideal shelter in the event of an asteroid impact is not unlike a bomb shelter built during the Cold War. It must be deep underground, 10 feet or so below the surface. It must have its own power source and water supply. Air must be filtered from the outside, and an effective sanitation system is key. Without realizing it, the survivors underground are doing just what their mammalian ancestors did 65 million years ago. At that time, early mammals, most the size of small rodents, took shelter in burrow holes, caves, or any other small protected space. The same strategy protects us in this modern-day apocalypse. Survivors locked away underground are safe, but for how long? Eight hours after impact, the great wildlife sanctuaries are consumed in flames. Millions of acres and millions of animals are swallowed in fires of biblical proportions. And as with the catastrophe that killed the dinosaurs, the bigger you are, the worse your fate.
One of the things that we know from the KT extinction is that nothing on land that was more than, say, 10 or 20 pounds survived. Big animals that require lots of energy. In the KT, it was dinosaurs. This time around, it would be big mammals.
All of those large species already on the verge of extinction are now lost forever.
Think about elephants. Elephants are pregnant for 2 years to give birth to a single calf. They have a really hard time building back up from anything that decreases their numbers.
The world burns for days on end, leaving a charred and blackened landscape behind. With so much smoke, soot, and debris in the air, the life-giving rays of the sun are blocked. Now, the lights go out on planet Earth. Night, the shadow of light, and life, the shadow of death. Algernon Swinburne, 1865. Could humanity survive the killer asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs? 7 days after impact, the answer is still very much in doubt. A remnant of humanity is secure in underground bunkers. But for months to come, the surface world will be shrouded in darkness. It may prove enough to starve the human race into oblivion. That's what happened 65 million years ago. Billions of dinosaurs were incinerated in the fires of impact. But extinction, the eradication of every individual in a species, most likely came when food sources on the surface completely disappeared in the darkness. Ultimately, the dinosaurs starved to death. Our intelligence and ability to plan for the disaster will help us avoid this fate. But it's not without challenges.
It's one thing to think about going down in your basement overnight to dodge a tornado, for example. It's a very different thing to think about living underground in a bunker or a cave for a month or a period of months. That requires fantastic resources in terms of food, water, sanitation, medical care.
While the remnant of humanity ekes out a meager existence underground, the surface world as we knew it dies. One month after impact, Earth is a ghost world that continues to change in the darkness.
The most challenging and noticeable changes will come from the atmosphere and the ocean. Because of differential heat now hitting the Earth compared to prior to, the ocean current systems will absolutely change.
Weather is incredibly severe and completely unpredictable. Some places are buried by raging blizzards. Others suffer torrential downpours that last for days.
Where there wasn't a monsoon, now there's a monsoon. Where it used to have a lot of rain, no rain. Where it used to have no rain, a lot of rain. Some deserts are going to bloom. Some rainforests are going to dry up. And the trouble is, it keeps changing.
But finally, the smoke clears. 12 months after impact, the sun peeks out of the clouds. 65 million years ago, the sun returned to a world without dinosaurs. All of them dead in less than a year. Luckily, most scientists believe that if the same impact struck our world, some portion of humanity would survive the year-long period of darkness. In nearly every case, underground bunkers would make the difference. Survivors would emerge to a surface world completely shattered by the impact and its aftermath. The world's cities are gone. There's no electricity, no telephones or radio. Cars are useless. Electronics, nothing more than garbage. Humanity has been bombed back to the Stone Age.
We're going to be living that kind of Mad Max existence. You're going to have to dig down and get those cans of dog food or whatever it takes to get.
If mankind manages to avoid extinction during a future impact, that just means that we survived. It doesn't mean necessarily that we survived with high technology.
Those people suited to this world are not necessarily those that were most prosperous before.
We like to think of the survivors as being someone from a big city who went down into a bunker outside of Chicago or New York or Paris or someplace like that. It's probably much more likely that it'll be a few people that may be very far from the actual impact itself, people that are already living a low-tech lifestyle that won't have to adapt to living without high technology because they haven't been living with it all along.
By going underground, mankind has managed to survive the darkest days of Armageddon. But there are very few of us left, and there is no clear path to survival in this harsh alien world. With so much empty space for life to inhabit, we should also consider what animals would benefit the most from this type of disaster. 65 million years ago, mammals flourished in the time after the asteroid impact. As with all life events, while one suffers, another is empowered. Perhaps now, an entirely new set of species will evolve to take advantage of the fall of human civilization. I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men lost their bones. T.S. Eliot, 1922. When the dinosaurs were wiped out by an asteroid impact, our ancient ancestors took advantage and slowly repopulated the world. It was the dawn of the age of mammals. Now, thousands of years after another asteroid assaults planet Earth, displacing humans at the top of the food chain, what species would fill the void until humans can rebuild? The ruined cities, abandoned by man, may become an important habitat.
We see them basically becoming covered in vines and trees and taken over by the animals that are in cities already.
A number of organisms may even evolve specific abilities to live in these unusual places. Evolution can do strange things. It's certainly impossible to predict, but lots of strange things could happen in those hulks of the old cities.
As with the dinosaur extinction and virtually all mass extinctions, insects are quick to rebound. One species would be particularly common in cities: cockroaches. Cockroaches first evolved 350 million years ago. They've survived 4 major mass extinctions. There is no reason to think they're going down this time. To the contrary, with plenty of detritus to eat and less competition, they evolve into giants. The largest cockroaches in our time are just 1 to 2 inches long. These roaches can be a foot long or more. But still, they can't quite take over.
Insects have had this chance many times in the past. After the KT, a lot of insects survive, but they don't become the dominant animals on the planet. Insect body plan, the very nature of the stuff that makes up their skeleton, limits them in size. You don't have any 10-foot sized insects. They would collapse under their own weight.
As in the past, they have a more important role to play. Food for larger animals. 65 million years ago, insects were a key food source for rodent-like animals, some of which eventually evolved into us. We can expect something similar in this modern-day disaster.
So wouldn't you know, we have this huge, horrible event, and it takes out all the iconic, big, wonderful mammals, and what are we left with? The rats. Wouldn't you know, it's the darn rats. Rodents are well suited for rapid evolution, and after a big impact, that's what you want. You want to be able to evolve quickly, because there's lots of niches that are now open.
In the post-impact period, rats could grow very large, some the size of dogs. But a flourishing rodent population would inevitably attract predators of its own. Birds famously survived the KT extinction, the only dinosaur lineage to make it through. Their size, diversity, and eating habits would help them survive this impact as well. The empty cities are a plentiful hunting ground for them.
A city is a complex three-dimensional environment. You can imagine them as sort of like mechanical equivalents of forests and canyons. And the things that tend to do well there are things that are good at moving in 3 dimensions. So I'd imagine that in the empty cities of the post-impact future, falcons might become the top predators because they could see everything moving on the ground.
The falcon stalked the supersized rats from above. While humans slowly rebuild their population, insects, rodents, and birds would enjoy a short period of prosperity.
If it's a KT-level event, probably humanity is going to be knocked back to just a handful or maybe even one little pocket of people someplace. And that as they start to recolonize the globe, their numbers are not going to be very big.
but eventually, mankind would rebuild itself. It's impossible to predict what their lives would be like, but almost certainly they would wonder one thing. Was there anything their ancestors could have done to prevent Armageddon? Awake, arise, or be forever fallen. John Milton, 1667. Since the 1980s, scientists have investigated the disaster that wiped out the dinosaurs. The devastating effects on our planet are well known. This research was important, as we know that this will happen again sometime in the future. And so the search began for killer asteroids in our celestial neighborhood.
The number of known asteroids keeps increasing, not because there's more asteroids than we thought, but because we've had more time to look. None of the asteroids that have been found to date are on impact trajectories, but as you might expect, there are a lot that are whizzing by as near misses. Most notably, there's an asteroid called Apophis, which is going to come very close to the Earth in the year 2029. So that's one that NASA is keeping a very close eye on.
There are two main strategies for averting an impact: destroy the asteroid or move it out of the way. But destroying the asteroid with nuclear weapons was quickly dismissed.
Probably the last thing we want to do is blow it up. So you've got a billion-ton asteroid headed your way, and you blow it apart, now you've got a billion tons of asteroid pieces still coming your way.
So if you break a big asteroid into 1 million fragments, you're going to have 1 million nuclear explosions all over the atmosphere of the Earth. Is that better or is that worse? I don't know.
Pushing the asteroid out of the way is the only viable option. Ironically, nuclear weapons could be used for this too. Detonating a warhead near the asteroid might be enough to nudge it off course.
It would eject a mass in one direction and push the main mass of the asteroid in the opposite direction.
A similar technique employs a kinetic impactor, just a large hunk of metal sent on a collision course with the asteroid.
It's a very small force, but if you put that small force on it well enough in advance, you can change the trajectory enough to miss the Earth. You throw a mass at it and create a crater. The crater on the asteroid ejects material and pushes the asteroid in the opposite direction.
A more elegant method is the use of a gravity tractor. A spacecraft sent out to rendezvous with the asteroid. Incredibly, its own gravity might be enough to gently tug the asteroid off course.
You have to have a propulsion system on that mass, but you don't actually have to tether it. It's gravity that is tethering your mass to the asteroid, and you very, very gradually change its course by pulling on it very, very slowly, but it takes years.
But all of these diversion tactics are dependent on one thing: time. It would take around 20 years for even the most promising strategies to work.
It's sort of like when you're in your car driving down the freeway. If you can see a problem coming a long way in advance, A slight twist of the steering wheel is all you need. If something happens right in front of you, you really have to swerve. Same problem with the asteroid. We don't want to have to swerve the asteroid.
Intelligence is our greatest advantage. It allows us to predict when devastating disasters might overtake our planet and gives us time to prepare. The dinosaurs had no such advantage. If an asteroid is headed our way, will we, at some point in the future, be driven to extinction like the dinosaurs? Only time will tell.